So, in this presentation, I'm gonna talk about the origin of Shia Islam because you cannot talk about Hezbollah without the origin of Shiites. And today, an analyst was saying, why didn't Nasrallah, before they assassinated him, just say, well, we were defeated and we can stop here and everything will be okay and there will be a peace initiative and what have you. But their eschatology drives them. Eschatology and ideology. So we're going to talk about the origin of Shiite Islam. Also, we're going to talk too about the Lebanon and the Palestinians. Okay. And we are going to also talk about how the rise of Hezbollah, and this one is starts in the 80s, early 80s, and how Hezbollah is an anti-Western tool used by Iran, etc. So, and feel free to stop me. I mean, I have done this many times through the years, and I can gather the train of of my thoughts easily. So, Hezbollah means the party of Allah, okay, and there is always a deep, rankling hatred of Shia Islam, the Shiites against the Sunni Muslims, because it's kind of uh, because of the uh, uh, historical struggle between the Shia and Sunni, and you'll see through the presentation here. Uh, Shia Islam may have started just after the death of Hussein, not during the days of Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam. The Prophet of Islam died in 630 AD, but Shia Islam started later after 680. To explain the issue, we should know that Muhammad died suddenly in 3 days and he was really kind of lost his senses, kind of, and he couldn't really give them a successor, somebody to succeed. He couldn't name somebody to succeed him on the, if I can say, on the throne or the leadership of the Muslim community in Arabia. So his father-in-law stepped in and took over, and his son-in-law, Ali, like Muhammad Ali Clay, Muhammad Ali stepped in, and you have to know this name, Ali, Ali. He stepped in, I mean, his father-in-law stepped in, but his son-in-law, Ali, wanted to be the successor, caliph in English today, but he was the youngest, and Arabs have a lot of respect for white hair, so they rejected him, and it took three successors for Ali to be able to take over during a civil war between Muslims. There were no Shia and Sunni yet, and Ali was killed, and his son tried after that to take the leadership, his son Hussein. When we say Ali, Muhammad's son-in-law and cousin, for Shia, this is the sacred family, So they are the grandchildren. Hussein is the grandson of Muhammad through his daughter Fatima. Okay, so Shiites later thought this guy Hussein has had holy blood. Okay, if I can say, sacred. He is sometimes say above prophets even. So uh, uh, during that civil war, when first his father Ali killed, then Hussein killed. Hussein was lured by, or if I can say, promised by people in Iraq that they're going to support him. So he left Arabia and went north to Iraq, traveled to Iraq for thinking that the people in Iraq will support him and he will become caliph, the successor of Muhammad. They walked out on him, and he was left with 100 of his supporters, his entourage actually, and wife and children. And he was beheaded, killed, and the other Muslim leader took over the whole, Muslim community and became the caliph, if I can say. And we need to understand that Shiites believe that Hussein, the son of Ali, the grandson of Muhammad, was trying to rectify history, to make things right, and that he was the martyr par excellence for them. In Islam, a martyr is the one who dies in the path of Allah in a jihad, not who witnesses, and he's killed by those who persecute Christians. No, that's a different notion. So in Islam, they believe he was the Shiites. Those who followed him later believe that he was trying to rectify history, and his death for them became later like the propitiation sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. Uh, okay, so Shiites are 15% of Muslims only, and they were the underdog for 1400 years. There were some intervals in history that Shiites were able to take over some parts of the Muslim empire, but not all of it. Sunnis, later what they were called Sunnis, they later they kind of they were always mainstream Muslims. Okay, Shiite Muslims kind of ignite this, hatred towards the mainstream Muslims every year in one of the lunar months when Hussein died, and they kind of reenact his the battle when he was died and beheaded, and they mourn his death by letting out blood. There is a lot of wherever there are Shiites, there are processions and acts of kind of mourning for 40 days actually. So this is Iraq. Some of this is in Lebanon. Pakistan, there is a Shiite minority, and other places. So you can compare it to the flagellation of Catholics in the Philippines. Yeah.
And recently in the West, Pastor Hesham.
Yeah, Dearborn, Michigan, Toledo, Ohio. Toledo, Ohio, Dearborn, Michigan, etc. So they kind of reenact the death of Hussein and mourn the death of Hussein by flagellation and letting out blood. Yeah. Was there a question or just somebody speaking in the background? Okay. So to understand the eschatology of Shia Islam, we need to know that Hussein died 680. If you look at, I don't want to go into details, but just pinpoint that 680, the death of Hussein, and they believe that from the descendants of his father Ali, through his brother or through him, are 12 imams. Imam is leader of the Muslim community. 12 imams who really kind of were supposed to lead the whole nation, but it didn't really come to fruition because the mainstream Muslims were against them. And the last one who disappeared, not died, in 868 AD. They say he disappeared and he's still alive and he'll come back. And he's a direct descendant of Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, through his daughter Fatima and cousin Ali. So, and they think that when he comes back, he'll lead the Shiites to victory all over the world, and they will, be able to take over, and so there are 12 imams, and the last one who Now the Shiites are branches, but we are talking about the mainstream Shiites. I don't want to complicate things for you. So if you see the guy with the halo or with the light in his face, that's really the Mahdi. They believe that he'll come back. He'll be more than 1,000 years old, I believe, when he comes back. And I'm showing uh, this to you to compare between the Shiite Imams, 12 Imams, and the 12 disciples. So you can see that they took the idea from the Messianic, traditions, let's say, and from Christianity as well as from Judaism. So the interesting part is that the Mahdi will come back for them, the Imam, the Shiite Imam. I shouldn't call him Shiite because some Sunni Muslims also believe in that, which is 85% of the Muslims believe it. So he'll come back
So
and
the Arabic word Mahdi is kind of the equivalent of Messiah, the
yeah, but
Hebrew word
Mahdi,
Messiah.
yeah, Mahdi is the right guided one. So they believe that Muslims are lost without him, so he's the right guided one. And when he comes back, the interesting thing is that the lion will lie with the lamb or with the camel, they say. Okay. And the interesting thing is that the Mahdi will not be able to kill the Antichrist. There is also in the Islamic eschatology an Antichrist and Gog and Magog. And so Jesus will come back, Jesus, the Muslim Jesus, who is in the second heaven, living in the second heaven for Muslims. This is really solid, authentic traditions from Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, not really something, like, folkloric traditions. No. So uh, Jesus, the Muslim Jesus, will come back and lead the Muslims to victory again. He'll break the cross, kill the swine, and establish the rule of Allah all over the world. When I do
And
some
Pastor,
presentation,
when you say the Muslim Jesus, let me try and is it Jesus as the Quran and Muhammad and the tradition after Muhammad
yeah,
portray him,
yes, that
right?
Jesus is the one who do not believe in Father, Son, Holy Spirit. He is not the Son of God. He is only a prophet, like all prophets, but he is a very important prophet in Islam. Yeah, so uh, the problem with the Islamic eschatology that or doctrine is that they denied the crucifixion. So what could they do with when they say that Jesus did not die on the cross, he did not rise from the dead? The only solution for them to say he was lifted to heaven, and he is alive and he's gonna come back. So it's kind of when you falsify, try to bring falsehood into truth, you have to find a way out to explain yourself, it seems. So they say he is in the second heaven and he'll come back. And they claim that Muhammad, when he ascended to the seventh heaven, he went into those layers of heaven and he met Jesus Christ. And the interesting thing is that he met in the same heaven, second heaven, Jesus Christ and John the Baptist, so it's a good combination, so the last one was Abraham because Muhammad and Muslims set store by Abraham and believe that he is the highest prophet, after Muhammad, okay? And that Muhammad is his descendant. So this eschatological doctrine makes Hezbollah like, makes it a cult of death, like also the Muslim Brotherhood as well. When I was with the Muslim Brotherhood, we used to shout like slogans like the Quran is our constitution, etc. So then death is the highest wish in the path of Allah is our highest wish. So
Pastor Hisham, let
yes,
me ask you a question here. When you
yeah,
say that eschatology or end time theology, Islamic,
yeah.
and Mahdiism uh, drives or fuels the conflict, the Arab and now Persian and Israeli conflict. Uh, do you consider the traditions after Muhammad that says like a major and final battle has to happen between Muslims and Jews where they wipe them out, and then the Mahdi will come, and then the end time will come, and then the victory and triumph of the Islamic Ummah will happen. Do you think that this is what is driving the Shiite Iranian regime and their Shiite proxies to kind of hasten the coming of the
Yes,
Mahdi
right, right.
by attacking Israel and attempting to wipe Israel out of the map?
Certainly, this is part of it, you know, even though, I mean, the Iranian regime has proved to be very pragmatic, but I mean, this is part of it. That's the opium of their nation, if I can say. They sell this to their followers, okay? And these are authentic, quote unquote, traditions by Muhammad. He said that one day the Jews will come in one place, and Muslims will massacre them, and even stone and trees will speak and say, "Behind me, a Jew, kill him or her." So this is really part of the end of times, Muslim end of times, you know. And this is really in the charter of Hamas, mind you, you know.
Uh-huh.
So they believe Allah is bringing them to the Holy Land to be massacred completely, you know. And they believe that, well, maybe, you know, if World War III starts, the Mahdi will come, you know. So
Yeah, and
these
this
are
is
the,
having mentioned Hamas, Pastor Hesham.
yeah,
This is probably one of a very few things, if not the only one, that brought Sunnis and Shiites together,
together, you're right.
because Iran is Shiite, Hezbollah is Shiite, but Hamas is a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, and they are
Yes,
Sunnis.
wonderful. Very, very important note. If you look at the map, you see here where Shiites are, the darkest are green, the darkest, the green spots are where the Shiites, Iran is 99% Shiite. Actually, there are Sunni Muslim and there are some Jews and some Christians, but these are old, you know, churches, you know, evangelical Muslims are not allowed, you know, but there are millions who are worshiping Jesus underground, you know. And many Iranians are disillusioned with Islam, actually. And I always like to quote a missionary who was lived in Iran 30 years, and during the Shah, and then during the revolution, he said, I met him in 2007. He said, Khomeini, the leader of the Islamic Revolution, did us a favor. In 2 weeks, Iranians were disillusioned with Islam, and they started asking about the Christian faith, you know. So, and he said 5 millions are, you know, underground. The underground church in Iran is something around 5 million people. So Iraq is 60% Shiite, Lebanon is 30% or maybe 35%, you know. It's really Yemen has another branch of Shia Islam, but you can see that it's you know, the majority also Shiite, and Turkey has some, and Syria some branches of Shiites who are Alawis. You know, let me explain what's Alawi because this is important because the Shiite faith has gradations, if I can say, blasphemy. You know, the Alawites believe that Allah was incarnated in Ali, the son, Muhammad's son-in-law, and then in his children later, imams, and then now he is his Allah's spirit is in Bashar Assad, for example, the Syrian leader. They don't tell you this in their doctrines. You have to talk to somebody from their community. And we have a friend who came to Christ, you know, a few years ago. He lived with them in Latakia, and which is mainly Alawi. Alawi.
Yeah.
Alawi is derived from Ali. So he said
Right.
that they believe that the spirit of Allah is in Bashar Assad. So
While we still have this map, Pastor Hesham,
yes,
you mentioned Khomeini, and I think that's an important person, an important date. It's
yeah,
kind of dates the awakening, the modern awakening, Islamic awakening, the Islamic Revolution in
yeah,
Iran, 1979,
yes,
and the attempt of the Islamic Revolution to export this
yeah.
awakening to surrounding countries.
I have a
And
slide on that. It's coming up. Yeah, if you kind of yeah. So we have to bring in the issue of Israel and Palestine here, okay? Because it's very important that in 1923, let me backtrack here. In 1917, the Ottoman Empire was defeated, and the British and French came into the Middle East and divided the land into the countries we know today, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and then they put a mandate on what they called Palestine, which a word that brings back Roman, nomenclature, if I can call it. The land was called in 123 AD, 90 years after the crucifixion of Jesus, to shame the Jews. It was called after their enemy and enemies, the Philistines, to shame them. And Jesus was not Palestinian, so we have to make that clear always, And they called the land Palestine, and they uh, soon there was some dispute over the land between the Arabs and the Jews, who were reforming, doing land reformation, agricultural reformation, and the land that the Jews took became like gardens and very good agricultural land. And it seems that, let me explain that some of the land was sold to the Jewish agency by Arab notables. I know two families in Lebanon who sold big pieces of land in Palestine, historical Palestine. One of them was the Sharon, it's called the north, in the north, a plain, really, actually. One of them sold, another Lebanese family sold a valley, the whole valley. So the story of Palestine is complicated. So there was civil strife over land, and some of the notables, Palestinian, there was no word Palestinian than Arab. They called them Arab. Arab Palestinians and Jewish Palestinians and Christian Palestinians. So they fought over land, and then after the defeat of the British I mean the British, after the defeat of Nazi Germany in 1945, Britain was so kind of tired of the colonies, and Britain handed over the issue of Palestine and the problem of Palestine, what they called the question of Palestine, to the United Nations. The United Nations declared a two-state solution, uh, and declared Jerusalem an open international zone, town. So while the Israelis celebrated the first, Jewish state after 2,000 years of diaspora, the Arabs rejected the partition and wanted the whole land, and they wanted the Jews to live under their control, and declared war. And five Arab armies attacked Israel, the nascent state, and then 800,000 refugees came out of Israel and the Palestinian territories, if I can call them, and half of them settled in Lebanon. That's 1940, first 1948. Then I speak with authority about this because my dad made bombs for the army, Arab army that attacked Israel. Okay, my uncle was in the army that attacked Israel. they called it, ironically, the Salvation Army. It means they want to save, the Arabs in Palestine. So I have really stories from really kind of my dad and my uncle, about it. So the Arabs tried again 1967. They were defeated completely and crushed in 6 days. And Egypt, neither is Egyptian. This is a big thing, 1967. And 20 kind of. So Israel took the Sinai Peninsula and the West Bank as well, and Gaza in 1967. Gaza was with the Egyptians, the West Bank was with the Jordanians, and for something like 19 years, those who were born in the West Bank were considered Jordanians. Both the Jordanian and the Egyptians never declared a Palestinian state. They could have, they never did that. 1967 was a big blow because to the Arab psyche, because Arabs who thought that they are the chosen people of Allah were defeated again, crushed, and they tried communism, they tried Western intervention, they failed, and they thought we should go back to Islam. Okay, and this is another story I'll pick up later, but. Out of this destruction rose the PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization, that was kind of given more support in 1968, led by Yasser Arafat. Yasser Arafat met also in Cairo with Nasser, the leader of Arab nationalism then, and the Saudi monarch, and they met also with the Lebanese government. It was a big mistake that they gave the Palestinian militias permission to establish military bases in South Lebanon to attack Israel. So the Arabs came together and they thought, we failed through conventional wars. Maybe now we can try a war of attrition. Okay, we call it today terrorism. So they start shooting at Israel from South Lebanon. South Lebanon is hilly. The Golan Heights is hilly. So they start shooting rockets at Israel, sniping at Israel, and sending commandos, if I can call them fidaiyin, they call them in Arabic, to perpetrate massacres against families, buses, what have you. They just attacked whoever they saw and killed. Uh, uh, so Lebanon, we had to talk a little bit about Lebanon. Any questions so far? Because I'm gonna talk a little bit about Lebanon, why Lebanon is special here, and why we have to pray for Lebanon. And Lebanon was. Any questions?
Well, I have a question, but not to answer now.
Yeah.
I want us to make some time to talk about why Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, who was assassinated a few days ago, is mourned in Australia, in Europe, and in North America, and in South America. Did the Islamists win the propaganda war, and what is happening in Western societies?
Let me say quick that I was giving a lecture to counterterrorism in Chicago some years ago, and there was some like 1,000 from the Midwest people and counterterrorism. I told them wherever there are Shiites in the world, from Australia to California, there is Hezbollah, because they believe that Hezbollah brought them glory. And so and all of them, most of them are relatives, second cousins, first cousins. So Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, is moored in Dearborn, Michigan, okay? And moored in Australia, where there are Shiites. In Germany, Germany had to clamp down on Hezbollah because of the money laundering operations they are doing. We'll talk about this.
Another thing, but also not necessarily right now, is that when you have talked about Hezbollah in Lebanon, uh, um, would you say a few words about Hezbollah International, like in
Certainly,
Latin
yes,
America?
because their system of support system extends from South America, Latin America, to North America, Dearborn, North Carolina, sometimes Chicagoland, and then in Germany and France and the UK and Australia, what have you. Yeah, their support system and smuggling, cartels. So Lebanon is special because Lebanon was created in 1923 as a haven for Christians in the Middle East. Christians were massacred by the Ottoman Empire. One of the last Ottoman sultans, they call them sultan, not emperor, saw that his empire is infiltrated, quote unquote, by Christian minorities. We're talking about Assyrians, Armenians, Greek Orthodox, Maronites, Coptics, so Egypt didn't suffer this problem of my computer needs some juice. So Egypt didn't suffer this problem because it was under the Khedewis, far from the Ottoman influence, indirectly influenced, but not directly. So Sultan Abdul Hamid perpetrated massacres against the Assyrians, killed something 100,000 in Iraq and Syria, converted by force 25,000, they say, killed the Maronites in Lebanon and Armenians. 2.5 million Armenians were massacred in Anatolia, Turkey, and what have you. Around Turkey, Anatolia is, more than some of them south of Georgia, what have you. So Armenia there too. So the colonial forces, the British and the French, had an appeal from the Maronite patriarch in 1923. 1919 started actually when they met in Versailles that we need to have Mount Lebanon led by Christians, and to be the commander in chief. You want to form a republic should be Christian. They accepted that, but they divide the power between Christians. The commander in chief, the president, should be Christian, Maronite, not Mennonite, Maronite. The prime minister, Sunni Muslim. The house speaker, Shiite. And not everybody was happy, but I mean, this is what was the plan for the Ottoman leftovers, so Syria, Lebanon, etc. We talked about that. So this is the last Christian president Maronite who was a Hezbollah puppet. Okay, and and this map shows you the distribution of sects in Lebanon. You have Shiites, the green, which are purple, Sunnis, the green, Alawis, kind of red, Maronites, you see the red, how many Christians we have. The red spots are Christian, okay? They are distributed between the north and the south, actually, So Armenians, etc. It's a complicated map, but I want to point out that the red are the Christian, okay? So Lebanon was a Western country, a land of contradictions. You can swim in the ocean, in the Mediterranean, and maybe go to the skiing and the Cedars in the same day. It's a small country the size of New Jersey. And it was really a very beautiful country, like the Switzerland of the Middle East. So until the Palestinian militias took over in South Lebanon and started shooting at Israel. This is very important because this really would lead to the birth of Hezbollah, okay? So the Palestinians started shooting at Israel after let me say, from 1969 till 1978, Israel tried to retaliate through shooting across the border, bombing military headquarters there. But then they in the end had to invade Lebanon and establish a buffer zone. You see the green zone here, it's called the buffer zone or border strip. And they established a southern Lebanese army, they called it, led by a renegade army officer called Saad Haddad. Haddad is a big family in the States, actually, Arab family. And so they kind of established this buffer zone in order to deter the Palestinians. It didn't work out very well because the Palestinians, you know, the with the advancement of technology, you start to have rockets that can go more than 10 miles, you know. This was really like 3 miles, not more. And so an important event took place in 1978. The buffer zone was established to protect Israel from the attacks then of Palestinian militias. Uh, and in 1979, 1 year after that, the Shah was toppled, and later Khomeini took over and started to export the revolution, as Pastor Nader said. And this led to a what they call the Shia revival in the world. Now the Shiites, after 1400 years being the underdog, started to have some say in the region. They are a big power, a regional power. Iran is 90 million people. Iraq, 60% of them Shiites. You know, Lebanon, 30% Shiite. Yemen, etc. So they started to think that now this is our time, and we have really to cling to power irrespective of the price we pay, you know, irrespective of the bloodshed. I have Iranian friends, Marj knows that, and we baptized some of them. They say uh, the mullahs, the Muslim clerics in Iran are ready to shed blood to the knees, you know. We say dam rukab, Nader will know this expression. They are ready to shed the blood of people to the knees, you know, up high, knee high, and not let go of power, you know. So Khomeini started exporting revolution all over the world, especially in Lebanon, because actually, you know, this really kind of, a thought from me as a historian. Lebanon is the origin of Shia Islam in Iran, actually. Iran was Sunni, and one of the emperors of Iran wanted to create a barrier between his empire, his Iran and the Ottomans, and he brought Shia Muslims, imams from South Lebanon, to convert Iran in the 16th century. So Lebanon is really as we say in Arabic, an organic part of Iran. So South Lebanon, not Lebanon. South Lebanon, which is Shiite. South Lebanon which is Shiite, is an organic part of Iran. It's really the one that proselytized really kind of Iranians into Shia Islam. As you know that unfortunately the Carter administration thought a Muslim cleric in Iran would be like the Saudis, you know, who really don't care and really would give them a break with the oil, you know, with the oil, industry, what have you. So they didn't really oppose the fall of the Shah, and but they were mistaken. It was a grave mistake that changed the face of history. The Carter administration let the Shah fall and Khomeini rise to power, and we had the hostage crisis. From day one, the Khomeini, regime, the Shiite regime in Iran, said that America is the head of the snake, and we need to really hit at the head of the snake in order to destroy Israel. And Israel is just, a follower of America, etc. So I don't want to go into this more. So 1979 was a turning point in the history of the region when radical Shia Islam took over and started to be exported to Lebanon, to Iraq, to other places in the world, whether in North America or Australia or Europe. 1982, after the PLO tried to assassinate the Israeli ambassador in London, the PLO became a kind of a menace to all kind of people in the region, if I can say, through their terrorism. So the Israelis were given a green light by the American administration, Reagan then, and they invaded Lebanon and they reached Beirut, okay? And so they reached Beirut, destroyed the PLO completely, and this is a very important now piece of information, okay? Nobody could stop the Israeli forces except the American administration and the European community. They formed a peacekeeper international power, and they sent those troops to Lebanon. They stopped the war. They stopped the invasion in Beirut, and the Israelis pulled out of Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, and allowed the evacuation of the PLO fighters to Tunisia and other places. The American, not only the Americans, the international community started to help Lebanon rise from this, tragedy and form a government, a good government that would really rebuild the country. Okay, so however, the uh, the the enemies of today were also there, and the enemies of the past, Iran, Syria, and the Soviet Union, not Russia then, and they collaborated together to destroy the Western influence over the new Lebanese government. They started they first hijacked aeroplanes. This is the TWA aeroplane. When it was hijacked in Beirut, they killed a Marine and threw him on the tarmac and took the plane to Libya and other places. It was led by an ex-AUB student, American University of Beirut student, Shiite. And the enemies of yesterday are the enemies of today too. So and then they perpetrated 3 suicide bombings that changed the course of history, if I can say. They attacked the U.S. Embassy. This is the U.S. Embassy in 1983. They attacked the U.S. Embassy through a bombing. My uncle used to work there. He said he didn't see any truck going in. And nobody until today knows how this happened. The mastermind of those terrorist attack was this guy, Imad Mughniya, his name, okay? The former uh, American University of Beirut student, okay? He hated Americans a lot. So they attacked the embassy, killed 66 people, US embassy. Then they attacked the barracks, 2 suicide bombings against the US Marines. They killed 243 US Marines and 56 French Marines. Okay. So that we have really Italians, French, Americans, British, what have you, And one thing Reagan did wrong is that he pulled the troops out of Lebanon and let the Lebanese government hang and dry. I met with the former president of Lebanon then, Amin Gemayel. You can see his picture. He looks like, one of the Godfather's, characters here. Yeah, like Al Pacino maybe. So Amin Gemayel, the former president, I met with him in 2004 when President Reagan died. And he said, I used to play tennis with Reagan. He considered me like his son. And he left Lebanon and let me hang and dry and had to face the radical Muslims who wanted to destroy the government and the effort to rebuild Lebanon. Just in 1 year after the U.S. troops pulled out, the Shiite militias, invaded Beirut and perpetrated a coup d'etat and established a leftist Shiite government. I mean, they were a conglomeration of the left and the Shiites. So let me say something that for people to be clear, Hezbollah was not formed to establish to fight the Jewish or state. It was not formed to fight the Israelis. The Israelis were already being dealt with, and they pulled out down to the south, you see, and they were not planning to occupy Lebanon. Hezbollah was established in 1982, 83 to fight against the Western influence in Lebanon and destroy the pro-Western, influence in Lebanon, as well as the pro-Western government and the efforts to rebuild Lebanon. So it's very important because they portray them as heroes, So,
But Pastor Hisham, I was listening to excerpts from Tufaili, the former,
yeah,
not the one who was assassinated a few days ago,
he
the one
was the
before
first
him.
Secretary General of
Of Hezbollah, the
yeah,
former leader of Hezbollah.
yeah, right.
And it seems that at some point there was a coup against him, and Nasrallah took over, and then Nasrallah was like on Iran's agenda and
Yes,
totally, and that is directed against Israel.
yes. Let me explain that when the Israeli forces invaded Lebanon in 1982, they first hit South Lebanon and drove out the Palestinian militias. The Shiites in the villages threw rice on them. Throwing rice in the Middle Eastern tradition is welcoming them, blessing them. So they were relieved from the Palestinian militias. So the Shiites were not against the Israelis, and the Israelis were not against the Shiites, you see. So the Palestinian militias perpetrated massacres in the 70s against the Shiite villages as well, the Christian villages. Mind you, the southern Lebanon is mixed. You have Maronite Christian villages and Shiite villages. And the first evangelical Christian radio station was in South Lebanon, actually. So, yeah, let me pick the train of my thoughts here. So, Hezbollah was able to rise to power through the support of Iran and the support of Syria. And the Syrians who were given authority unfortunately, by the United States and the international community to tame Lebanon, because Lebanon became like the Wild West in the 80s. And Hezbollah kidnapped Americans, Europeans, and asked ransom for them, millions of dollars, okay? I have two professors from the American University of Beirut who were kidnapped and held for years till they were ransomed with millions of dollars. Okay, so Hezbollah is really an enemy of the West, and those who are shouting "Death to America" in Dearborn and New York and other places of the West, they really mean it, because they are really either supporters of Hezbollah or members of Hezbollah. Okay, so they rose to power in Lebanon through support of Iran, and Iran gives $5 million a month. That's old statistics. Now it's more, maybe, to pay salaries for Hezbollah and other than weapons and logistic, support. We'll talk more about their. So they rose to power, and they were able, by the support of Syria, to run for parliamentary elections. They established also social institutions, hospitals, schools, kindergartens. So to peddle their ideology. You have to see that it's not out of human love they are establishing schools and institutions. They were peddling their ideology, and the Shiite community used to be poor. So, and the government in Lebanon is still a failing government. It's a failing state. So they kind of a banana republic now. It used to be a democracy. So they were able to help their Shiite community rise from poverty into the leadership of the Lebanese community. In the 90s, I taught ESL to graduates from all over the world who didn't speak English. Many of those graduates came Shiite Lebanese from Iran. So Iran gave them grants and full scholarships to go become engineers and doctors and what have you. Then they came to Lebanon. They didn't speak one word of English, and I was an ESL teacher. So this is my experience that Iran was really kind of trying to lift up the Shiite community that was poor and partly illiterate, you know. So in the end, now they have 13 members of parliament in the Lebanese parliament out of 128, but they have also another Shiite, you know, movement called Amal, which is not that radical, but still they are allies and they join hands. And then we have Christians who want to be in power and they really kind of uh, court with the Shiites and they support the Hezbollah in order to become, you know, president or what have you. You see, so all in all, they kind of almost govern or have the support of half of the parliament of Lebanon. Okay,
All
so
right. So it is a few seconds before 10
I'm gonna
a.m.
end soon. I'm gonna
Yeah,
end soon.
I
So
because I want to give some time to questions
yeah,
and also a few minutes for prayer before we
yeah.
part.
So the the terrorism of Hezbollah, the biggest terror strike, was when they killed the prime minister of Lebanon, who was trying to rebuild the country again. I worked with them 6 years. They put a truck full of explosives and destroyed all his motorcade, and Hariri was trying to get the Syrian occupation out of Lebanon. So they are allies with Syria. So they assassinated him. Then they assassinate 17 members of parliament and cabinet ministers and many authors, many journalists, anybody who wrote against them and was really kind of promising was killed by, you know, Hezbollah. So and they kept their you know, terrorist attacks through all over the world. One of them was in Argentina, and one of the biggest mistakes of Hezbollah is going to Syria and supporting Bashar Assad. Hezbollah, which was a like a mafia, became exposed in Syria because they acted like an army, and this really helped Israel collect more information against them. And they say they credit the attack of the pagers and the walkie-talkies to the to this really problem that Hezbollah was exposed in Syria because they became like having a hierarchy. Okay, so just Hezbollah's aim is to fight American and Israeli imperialism, and they act as a proxy of Iran. And their funding is from Iranian government, Lebanese business groups in Dearborn, Michigan, Australia, Germany, France, etc., and South America and Latin America, and also they have drug trafficking, money laundering, and they get tithing from Shiite Lebanese all over the world. You know, so it's not an easy task to dismantle Hezbollah. You know, so
I
yeah, I can end here. Yeah,
yeah.
questions.
All right. Like I have a question, and meanwhile, participants, if prepare your questions for Pastor Hesham.
Yeah.
Uh, what would you say about, is there a real threat like here, homeland, United States of America, from Hezbollah sympathizers or
Yeah.
members who are planted here or in South America?
I think once Israel hits Iran hard, Iran may reactivate the sleeper cells in the West. You know, maybe the sleeper cells may use, we are a nation where you can walk into Cabela's, buy a gun, I mean, or any place where you buy a gun and what have you. So we have American citizens who hate America. Okay, then they pledge loyalty to Hezbollah and Iran. We have Iranian advisors, American advisors in the White House. We have Palestinian American advisors in the White House today. So once Israel hits Iran back, because Iran attacked Israel, you may see that Iran may activate those sleeper cells, and they may attack with knives even, because as I said, martyrdom is their, one of their doctrines, that you'll die a martyr. Like yesterday, two Palestinians attacked, a train in Israel, and with machine guns, and killed 6 people and injured many. So, and then died. So you may see something like that. I believe. So the situation is really dangerous. Okay, whether over there in the Middle East or here. And we really mourn and pray for the victims, the innocent victims in Gaza and Lebanon and Israel and Iran as well. Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? Marge, first of all, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Did you have a question? Sue,
No.
Carol, Christiane?
He's muted.
I do have
Yeah.
a question.
Yes.
I have a question for Pastor Hesham. Pastor Hesham, can you speak into the history of what God has done for us, even through all these years of violence and ill will and martyrism and attacks? Can you tell us of the hope that of Jesus Christ in this?
Well, I'm preaching on Hebrews 2 this Sunday, and the title of my sermon is God is in control, and we need to have faith that God, we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose, and we had a friend in South Lebanon, Muhammad Yamut. The Syrian revolution brought to him thousands of people. We were with George Hosni last week, and he said 11,000 were touched by Jesus because of the turmoil in the Middle East. So God has a purpose for us, and we have to, embrace. Hebrews 2 is difficult because it tells you about that even Jesus suffered and became perfect, because of suffering. And we have to embrace the suffering and really reach out with boldness to people and know that God is in control, and history is his story. And we have to have hope in him, because he claimed victory over Satan and death. And he said, in this world you'll have trouble, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world, right? And this is one of my favorite verses in John 16. Yeah, this is my answer in short. So it's God's plan for you and me, I believe, for those who are called according to his purpose. Yeah.
Thank you, Pastor Hesham. Yeah, I would always love to hear from you, because you've been through a lot, you've seen a lot, but you've seen God's hand rule and reign. So through a lot, and although we see all this stuff, you believe, and we believe too. So thank you for encouraging us through all that.
I was kidnapped by Hezbollah in 1987, tortured for 2 hours, and I talked them out of slitting my throat. And I don't have a grudge against them. I have to love my enemies, and most of the Iraqis who kind of come to Salam Fellowship are Shiites, and I mean, I love them to Jesus, and we have really to have a heart of love, and this is our message. Yeah.
Amen. Keep up the great work.
Anyone else has a question?
Political questions are welcome because I was a journalist, so I can and a professor, so I'm a cross between pastor and professor, So you can ask whatever you feel like,
I do have a question about Hezbollah in the United States.
Yeah.
I believe that those cells are growing because I work with some of the Muslims and I see the brotherhood kind of forming.
Yeah.
I think too, they think I'm scared of them, but I'm not scared of them. But I think that's the position they want to do now that they have this strength in numbers. So, yeah, I think we just have to stay strong. That's unwarranted fear. So politically,
Yeah.
do you believe how fast is the increase, or, how can we as soldiers of Christ be ready for something like this? And what might we see besides, you said there might be martyrism here. So
Yes.
anyway, yeah.
Mass immigration has changed the face of the West. And when I lived in Dearborn, Michigan, I spotted a flag of Hezbollah in a car. Okay, and they were not very bold to show it out. And they have institutions like. As soon as I hear the name of the store, I know that this is really a Hezbollah store because we have the same name in Beirut, Mustafa Market. You have Mustafa Market in southern part of Beirut, Dahi, you see, and the Hezbollah flag was there. But recently, with before the invasion of Lebanon, before this attack on Lebanon by Israel, when the Palestinians were supporting Gaza, and one of them is Tlaib, which is a member of parliament in Michigan. She really kind of a popular figure there, and there are other leaders of the Shiite community. When I lived there, they were something like maybe 500,000. I believe now they are more than 1 million. And one of the leaders, to show you how much there is support for Hezbollah, his name is Osama Siblani. He publishes a news. He has a publication in English and Arabic, okay, in Dearborn, Michigan. He said, "We support Hezbollah publicly for Nader ala satah," he said, ala satah, publicly, okay? And if the FBI...
Like from the rooftops.
Rooftops. And if the FBI want to come arrest us, they have to bring buses, okay? So 10 years ago, the flag of Hezbollah was in a car discreetly. Now they are open and saying that we really challenging, And this is why we need an administration that would really cut their nails, if I can say, and control radical Islamists in our midst, and implement the constitution as well, protects our freedom of speech and of freedom of faith, freedom of worship, because in Dearborn, Michigan, and in the Twin Cities now, it's and other places, they have the call for prayer 5 times a day, even at dawn, from the mosque, on how loudspeakers, They may not, this may disturb, So they are really kind of... And I want to add that there is a town in Michigan, Hamtramck. All the board are Muslims from Yemen and Bangladesh. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I have a quick question. I would like if you could give a short answers, and then we pray. A week ago, a mayor, a Yemeni mayor, a Yemeni American, of course,
Trump.
endorsed Trump. How do you read that?
because that town is against gay issues and LGBTQ and the peddling of those things in the schools and what have you. And he thought that a far left woke administration would be a disaster for the Muslim community, you know. So, so this is why he endorsed Trump. And I believe that now the Green Party leader, Jill Stein, her name, she is being endorsed by other Muslims because Harris is also, you know, supporting Israel, you know, or saying that she supports Israel. So
That's the independent candidate running
yeah,
for the president for the United States. That
yes, right,
most everyone haven't heard about her.
yes, right,
Uh, but she is capable of taking some votes away out
right.
of the Democratic votes or otherwise the Republican. So with that, I want to go back to the title or the name of this session, Hezbollah. It literally means the party of Allah, and the phrase comes from the Quran.
Yes,
And the
right.
Quran says the party of Allah are the overcomers, are the triumphant.
Yes, right.
So it's uh, we started this session by prayer, and we prayed to God of the universe, who is sovereign and